Hi, thanks for listening to the Monthly Social here on YouTube. If you haven't already, please click the subscribe button. It would mean the world to us. All right, hope you enjoy the rest of the show. Take care. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Monthly Social Self-Help Spotlight. I'm your host, Guido Perino, and it is my pleasure to host on this month's show Dame Clarissa Burt. You may remember her in the never-ending story, The Next Chapter, or in one of the many Italian performances like Casa Mia, Casa Mia, through one of her many modeling experiences, or even as an Olympic correspondent. Today, she's also here as an award-winning author of her book, The Self-Esteem Regime. We'll talk journey, culture, books, self-esteem, mirror therapy, and more. Thank you for being here, Clarissa. How are you today?
It's so good to meet you. And I knew from your first name, but I definitely knew from your last name you're Italian.
When you said my name the first time, Guido, did you say it like that or?
It's Guido Piraino. Guido, you are Piraino in Italian. You're not.
Piraino, Piraino.
It's Piraino. Believe me, I lived in Italy for 30 years.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you about that. So talking about where you live right now, you're in Phoenix, right?
I am in Phoenix,
Yeah.
Hades, hotter than Hades. Phoenix, hotter than Hades, Arizona. Yes.
Is it so hot that the ground is baked? Is it true?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you leave your car outside and you want to bake some cookies on a cookie sheet on your dashboard, you definitely can do that.
I
It's hot.
sense
It's really hot.
I sense people doing TikTok videos now that they heard that in Phoenix and sending
Yeah,
us some cookies baking on the dashboard.
absolutely.
So look, you started your journey in Phoenix and you said, "Hey, I lived in Italy, Rome, Italy. Now you're in Phoenix, Arizona."
Right.
In all the, places that you've traveled and been, what's one of the most spectacular things you've seen?
Right. Well, I don't know. I was born in Philadelphia and then I graduated high school in Jersey. But after that, I moved into New York City because I really wanted,
Oh,
bright lights,
wow.
big city, right?
Yeah.
That I think was for me was really, it's the great, I think it's the greatest city in the world. But, in my day, it was the greatest city in the world.
New
Let me,
York?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Not anymore necessarily, potentially. I mean, I hear bad things. But when I was living there in the 80s, it was the top of the world. And then of course I lived in Europe for 30 years. So I think Venice always really always hits in a really spectacular way. Rome, they call her the mamma. So every time you go back, it's like, being in, they call it like in the arms of your mother, going
Yeah.
back to Rome. Rome is really spectacular, all, for the city, for the people, for the food. Italy's just, was really, really it's just great all the way around. There are beautiful other places to visit in Europe, obviously,
Yeah.
but I really fell in love with Italy and stayed for quite some time. So I think that would be the answer to that question.
So how did you end up finding your way to Phoenix?
Well well, after I was there for all that time, I wanted to come back home and be with my family. I was away for
Ah,
30 years, so I wanted to be with my family. In the interim, my family had moved from Philadelphia, from New Jersey, and my uncle had already moved to Chicago. So everybody decided they were going to come out here. It was, we're talking 30, 35 years ago. It was still new, it was clean, it was, now it's a little bit different because we've had a lot of influx from the west coming in
yeah.
from California and the south coming up from the border.
Yeah.
So it's a little it's a little different than it was 30 years ago. But it's still a lovely place, to live, and it's hot. It's just hot. So that's why I'm here. And I stayed because of family.
Awesome. Family is important. And you mentioned Chicago. I have family in Chicago as well. Haven't been there in a few years, but hopefully I can make my way back there. So look, as you began this journey and you've done this, and as you began your journey as a public figure, you started as a model. That eventually led to some movie roles.
Mhm.
Was that something that you had in mind all along, or is it happenstance? Did you just kind of go, oh, this thing happened and I'm going with it, or was it a
Yeah.
dream?
No, no, no. I was Mary Poppins in the kindergarten play, and so after I had sung my rendition of Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious and got my first standing ovation, I was hooked. Stage was really, we were just kind of, we're like meant to be together. And, it's like, hold my beer, give me a microphone, and I don't drink beer. So, it was just one of those kinds of things that I don't drink at all. But it was just really one of those kind of things that, you kind of know, you just know. And I knew when I was a kid, we had 3 channels on the TV. And on Saturday mornings or Saturday afternoon, we used to get a lot of the old Hollywood movies. And so I'm
Mhm.
looking at Ava Gardner and I'm looking at Rita Hayworth, and they're dancing on these beautiful gowns, and I wanted to be them. I just wanted to be them. So the only thing that we had that was close to the internet back in the day, and I'm talking 60s, in the 60s, was the Sears catalog would show up,
Right.
and it would show up twice a year. So it was summer, spring, summer, and then fall, winter. And the first thing I would do would, just sort of like, page my way through to the women's section so I could see the clothes and the models and the hairstyles and the makeup. And that's what I wanted. That was really my sort of my training ground, if you will. Fast forward to moving into New York City and wanting, as a secretary, I was working as a secretary, and I always wanted to be a model. I was tall, I was thin, and people coaxed me. Yeah, I really wanted to do it, but never thought I could. And there you are now, also starting to feel that whole lack of self-esteem thing, right? Oh, I could never, I could never. And I just, I forged past the feeling of I could never. And I said, you know what? I'm never going to know unless I give it a shot. And it worked well. And then from Wilhelmina, which is where I was in New York City at the time, it was one of the top modeling agencies in the city. I was off to Paris, and then from there to Milan. So that's how I got the 30 years in Europe, mostly in Italy. But it was a really great go, I tell you.
That's amazing. Like, and as a, when you were, young as a child, you were starting to envision it. You were looking at the
Yes.
pictures,
Oh
and,
yeah,
and it kind of manifested itself is
it
what I'm
did. It
hearing. So,
really did. It really, really did.
and
And not only, but and I'm going to probably go out on a limb here, and I don't mean this in any way at all to sound
Mm.
braggadocious, but they had started to call me the Ava Gardner of the 80s. And when I got onto television and I started to do the Italian television shows, they had me do a number once that was Amato Mio from Rita Hayworth, where she had on, the white gown and the whole thing. So here they calling me Ava Gardner of the 80s. And then I was singing Rita Hayworth songs. I went, wait, you talk about manifestation. Wow.
so
You know,
that's gotta be surreal in that moment. Like,
it was surreal in the moment. And I didn't really connect those dots back in the day. It took me a moment. But they used to do once I was working on television and things, they would put side by side pictures of,
eh,
myself and Ava Gardner. And of course, to me, she was my idol. And so it was kind of a pinch me moment. And so, yeah,
as
it was great.
as
Really
you're
great.
telling me that, I'm envisioning you doing this, envisioning yourself doing this, right? Like going, oh my God, that actually
Yeah.
came to fruition, right? How does the never ending story role come along?
The Never Story came along after I had already done a couple of different movies in Italy. They were looking for the Mean Queen in the Never Ending Story Part 2, Zaida.
Yeah.
And so the producer of one of the movies that I had the eyebrow, right? So when I was modeling and when I was on stage, my attitude thing was my left eyebrow. I could lift it up. And it kind of looked, I suppose it looked a little sinister. And they
Yeah.
thought, well, there you go. There's our girl. There's the Mean Queen. And I had to go and audition with, like they said they looked at over 400 girls for that part. And
Wow.
I had to go to Munich, Germany twice to actually sit in and get in front of do hair. Well, not quite all hair and makeup, but enough hair and makeup where I kind of looked sinister, I guess. And they had me in front of camera to actually do what they call the provino, or the trial run.
Yeah.
And then I didn't hear from them for 3-4 months, so I was sure I didn't get it. I didn't get the part, and I really wanted it. I mean, I really wanted that part, and I got it. So that was lots of fun. Yeah, that was
So, so what attracts you to the role? Like you say, I really wanted it. It's an evil sorceress. Why did you want that
well,
role?
for me, the evils because I didn't have to act.
I
It
need
came
one of those.
naturally. It came naturally now. I loved the role. I thought the role was amazing, and I was really looking to go, bigger and better in cinema. And of course, the Neverending Story was, I think was translated into
Yes.
17 different languages, went global, and it was a Warner Brothers worldwide release. So, we had 2 separate premieres. I got to meet, Princess Anne, the royal family, because we had our premiere in London, the whole thing. It was just the whole thing of it was really cool. And the messaging was really important too. First off, it's a children's movie mostly,
Yeah.
but it's kind of a family movie, which was great. And the messaging was the importance of reading, because she was fighting I think it was she was pushing the nothingness. And the nothingness is where she was taking the child's memories each time,
Yeah.
she would take a memory from his head, to the point where he was almost getting to he was in Fantasia now. He didn't remember his mother, he didn't remember his father, and he had one memory left, or one wish. So every time he had a wish,
Yeah.
he would use a memory, right? So at the very end scene, she says to him, she wanted to get rid of him. She goes, "Make your wish to go home," because she knew he was going to go back and not remember his parents, right? So he goes, "Yes, Zaida, I will make my wish. I wish for you to have a heart." And well, I mean, then she explodes, and that's the end of the movie.
Oh, that's awesome. And the synopsis to go. And you end up writing a book later on. So there's some
Yeah,
ironic twists here.
yeah, yeah.
You talked about the Italian movies as well. And
Yeah.
look, you're born in Philly. Did you grow up
Yes.
speaking Italian?
Yeah, I'm not
No.
Italian in any way. I'm Irish, 100%, 100 million percent, Irish, and English, I suppose it's thrown in there somewhere. But obviously Philadelphia is really, it's really Irish and Italian, or was at the time. Well, there was some German, but really it was most prevalent were the Italians and the Irish at the time. And so I knew a lot about Italian culture, Italian food, and San Gennaro festivals and all the like. But I didn't speak a word of English except ciao and arrivederci when I was a kid, and got to Italy, and I did then subsequently become an Italian citizen, and I speak fluent Italian, but I don't have a drop of Italian blood in me.
That's incredible. So just by relocating to some basic culture things happen, you relocate to Italy and you
Yes.
absorb the language
Yes.
to the point where you do multiple Italian movies.
Yes. Yeah, I did actually. And of course, obviously they're done in
Yeah.
Italian. There, I have a bit of an accent, but because I sing as well, I have a real good ear. So I get, they say, they used to say to me, "We know you're not Italian, but you never, we can't figure out like where you're from, in other words." So it's just a little bit of something, something going on. But so I was very proud of that.
That's awesome. That's a great story and a great inspiration for folks, as you think about, hey, can I do that? Yeah, you
Yeah,
move to it,
anybody
you
can
learn the
sing it.
language
Of
and
course.
you had an entertainment career out of it. It's
Yeah,
phenomenal,
absolutely. Some of
right?
the best, I mean, just the greatest times.
Look, Clarissa, with all your successful entertainment experience, you recently turned your attention to writing a book. And that's what I mentioned. Hey, you wrote a book. You penned an award-winning book called The Self-Esteem Regime.
Yes.
And before we get into some of the book details and benefits for our listeners and some of your readers, I wanted to ask you about what you say is your objective. And
Mhm.
you say the objective is to see people everywhere living in happy, healthy
Healthy
self-esteem.
self-esteem. Yes.
This is incredible. What brings you to the moment in your life that you recognize this as an objective?
Because I think people would suffer less. I think really people would suffer less. I've seen so much suffering from people that just have a bad, just have a bad sense of self. Their negative mindset, mind think, and not, not understanding how potentially that they can go about learning to love themselves. I was, when I was a kid, we, again, no computers, no internet, but that we had three bookstores here in the United States, and that was Walden Books, Border Books, Borders Books, and Barnes and Noble. And in the very back, there was a little section called the self-help section. And honestly, there couldn't have been any more than 40 or 50 books total. And that's where I would go for some help, some guidance, some solace, assistance, get some of my whys answered. And I realized now, of course, it's a billion-dollar industry, and the only bookstore left is Barnes and Noble. When you walk into Barnes and Noble now, it's a personal development section that just goes on and on and
Mm.
on and on and on. But back to the point, and that is, I think that, we as human beings are always a work in progress. We're constantly learning. We're constantly asking the questions why. Whatever questions were answered, why is my day so horrible? Why can't I have happy relationships? Do I have a eating problem? Why am I drinking too much? Whatever it may be, there are reasons. And if you take the time to learn, a little bit more about yourself, it's so enlightening, and it's very powerful. And that's what happened to me. There are a couple of different things that, when I was writing this book, The Self-Esteem Regime,
Yeah.
which, by the way, is a manual. It's, I call it, I say it's a manual, a mission, and a movement, right? Because I want to see everyone living as an esteemed being. But the manual part of the book is it's broken down into 12 bite-sized chapters. Each chapter starts with a word. A regime is an organized way of doing things. And this is organized for you in a way that, you're not going to read about. It's not a read. You're not going to read about self-esteem. It's not that kind of a book. It's a manual. You're going to do self-esteem. You're going to work through the self-esteem. We've got, case studies, affirmations, exercises, Clarissa's Corner. I mean, there's all kinds of things in each chapter that I think really help, push you forward into wanting to get to the next chapter. So the first chapter, Guido, is release. What is it that you were taught, what you think is written in stone? Where is it you think everything is etched in marble and you can't change it? Those are some of the things I think are the first things you need to address. What's not serving you? Because I understand that, we all understand that our parents did the best they could do. Parenthood doesn't come with a manual or an instruction booklet. Our parents aren't perfect, and, I don't know how long it took all of us to figure that out, but we have to stop being pissed off at our parents. We just do, no matter how good or how bad they were. It's on us now. It's okay. Okay, the toxic stops here. I'm going to get in touch with my inner child and I will reparent her.
So
And that,
Clarissa,
yeah, that's where the beginning of the book, that's where the beginning of the work starts.
so at some point as you're doing this and as you're saying this to me, you saw enough of something happening that you had to do something about it.
Yeah.
And the something about it that you did was started writing the book, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
and
mean,
and there's a lot of these somethings going on that we're going to talk about today, right?
yeah. Well, I think, people say, why did you write the book? Well, here's one of the reasons. Here's me when I was,
Yeah.
that's probably Mary Poppins age right there. But
Yeah.
there's my mother. Okay. And my mother used to say to me very frequently, oh, don't take a picture of me. I look horrible in pictures. And I'd say, Mommy, you're so pretty. Oh, no, I'm not. Mom, you're so smart. Oh, Chrissy, believe me, I'm not smart. And my mom, so my perception of my mother, who was my everything, is my everything, was not the same as her own perception.
Right.
And I think that was something that really, I've got just a secondary picture so you can see. I mean,
Oh
Mom
yeah.
was pretty lady,
Yeah.
right? Cool.
Yeah.
And I have my grandmother, who was a lovely lady, lovely, very pretty lady. And she decided one day, I don't know, she's 45, 46, and she needed to lose weight. She didn't need to lose an ounce. She was thin and trim and beautiful. So she takes 2 diet pills one day. She chokes on them, perforates her esophagus, and winds up in the hospital for 6 weeks. That's an older picture of Grandma, but just to give you an
Oh,
idea. And so, I'm like, Graham, you're so beautiful. Where's the disconnect between what I see in you and what your inner, chatter is all
right.
about? And that's what, okay, fast forward to the modeling years. Now
Yeah.
I'm working, with the, some of the 1%. 1%. I'm working with all the cover girls, with all the runway models that were all over, the runways and all over the world. And so I'm working with some really beautiful, beautiful women. By the way, this is not everyone, just some of the cases were toxic relationships, alcohol, drugs, anorexia, bulimia. And I'm looking at these girls, of course, and what's the connection? Lack of happy, healthy self-esteem. And everyone needs to work through their own. So that's really the reason that I wanted to get, this out of my head and onto paper, the self-esteem regime, to help others. And by the way, self-esteem doesn't discriminate. So this is, the cover of my book is blue. I'll show it to you. When I first got it back, it was pink, yellow, and orange.
Yeah.
Okay. from the publisher. There's a New York City publisher, Reuben and Littlefield. And I said to them, can you do me a favor? It's beautiful and I love it. Can we make it blue so that men will pick it up? Because we don't, really, truly, we don't forget the guys in this scenario. Everyone will have self-esteem issues somewhere along the line, if not, more frequently than that.
You gave me so much to work with here as I continue to talk. So thank you for all that. Thank you for sharing the pictures, because I think when we show the pictures and eventually folks will see the
Drives it
video
home.
version of
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
they'll resonate with what it is
Right.
that you're saying and some of your reasons, right? So you gave us a personal connection, but you also talked about environment. You
Mhm.
gave us some glimpses into the times of the year or throughout the years as well.
Mhm.
And I know one of the challenging things in the last few years, Clarissa, especially coming out of the pandemic, are things like the news and social media and politics and
Mhm.
economy.
Yeah.
In your experience, what would you say is the element that is most impacting us from those pieces? And you started talking a little bit about it when you talked about your mom and your grandma, but
Mhm.
those times were a little bit different, but maybe not, right? Now we're just using maybe different mediums, but from your experience.
Right. Well, I think it's more prolific now,
Mm.
also, yeah, because of the pandemic, yes, but really because of social media. We have a mental health crisis. We do here in the United States. I'm sure you must in Canada. It's a youth mental health crisis, but not only. And we have a loneliness epidemic going on right now. And so people everywhere are hurting. And we've, got wars. I mean, we could talk about all kinds of social,
Yeah.
political, all of that as well. I just think that let's just keep it as on a general basis, on any day basis. If if I think you should not turn on the news because it just tends to depress you. And I think that that would be the answer to the question. We have mostly a lot of our kids are depressed or anxious, they're committing suicide or they have committed suicide. And I know that sometimes they say suicide, sometimes they say unalive, but definitely you're the author of your own demise, right?
Yeah.
So you really have to be we have to be more mindful and doing the work that I did, especially when you start to do the work on it. First of all, it's your sacred duty to do the work on yourself for the love of self, and it's your sacred duty to take the walk down the path of self-improvement for the others around you as well. Any relationship that you're going to be in, the relationship with self and the relationship with others, it is really your sacred duty to do that. So anyway, I could be here all day because I get really talky about this, but we
No,
have to
they're
keep.
listen, they're good. It's a good insight and it's a good segue because you mentioned mental health as a crisis and you talked
Yes,
about loneliness. And so
yes.
then I start to think, why is self-esteem so important to our fabric as individuals
Mhm.
as we engage in these social settings,
Right.
which is different than the social settings of 20,
Yesteryear.
30, 40
Of
years
yes.
ago?
Yeah, because social media has made it a lot easier for everyone to compare themselves to others and feel lesser than. B, it's opened itself wide up for bullying the way we never saw it.
Hmm.
We talk about a lot of times we talk about, the grass is always greener on the other side. We feel lesser than the Joneses because it looks like everything's so great over there. Well, first of all, we haven't walked a mile in their shoes. So that's something that, I like to drive home. Secondly, you get to be you. You're so, source and divine universe, whatever you want to call it, God, they knew exactly what they were doing when they created you. So you need to just be real happy about that and not worry about what everybody else is doing. The other thing is, we're always worried about the grass being greener on the other side, right? And so here's a couple of things I say about that. The grass is always greener, Guido, where you water it.
Hmm.
Okay. So be real, real careful about being mindful of your own business. Be worried about everybody else's business. Just worry about your own. And the second thing I say about that is it really grass? Is grass really greener on the other side, or is it astroturf? Is it fake? Is it plastic? Is it not real? So bringing that back into social media,
Mhm.
we have so many of our young girls putting on these fake filters, right? Because 7, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old and older putting on these beauty filters and glamour filters because they don't think that they are pretty enough the way they are. And the Dove self-esteem efforts do amazing work around self-esteem for young girls. So always kudos to them. But, again, these are some of the reasons why. Thirdly, is we're all, it was easier, I think, for parents along the way, as, a lot of latchkey kids and parents having to work 2 jobs, to give them the
Mhm.
devices to keep them busy and keep them occupied. Well, that opened up,
Mm.
Pandora's box as well, because now some of us are not really sure how to be in social settings anymore. And so the anxiety is there's an anxiety factor around that. And so I'm just saying, get everybody back around the kitchen table again.
And it
You
and it
got
might
this
it
stuff.
might it might be getting worse with artificial intelligence being
Yeah,
introduced
yeah,
and
yeah.
and
I don't
and
even want to go down
you
that
know,
path.
and I like, you're framing it like, everybody looks like they have a perfect life on social media. Like
Yeah, of
they're,
course.
that things get doctored up and we doctor them up and we make them look better than they are sometimes. Look,
Things, right?
if we don't have self-esteem, or if we deem our self-esteem to be low, how do you recommend that we get more of it, or make it better? I feel a little ridiculous asking that, because I feel like I'm trivializing the question, but there's got to be a starting point.
Well, there's a starting point, and that is, knowing that, things hurt, things feel uncomfortable, things don't feel happy. You know that you're depressed. You know that you're not living your best self. So, find the help where you can. With the internet these days, instead of, being on TikTok for hours every day, maybe you need to be looking into courses or classes or books or even meetup groups, of people that are like-minded, that'll be able to get you out of the house, and interested in other things that's not necessarily your device or whatever else might be happening that you might be using your time on. So I think that that's really always a really important thing. No more say, you got to say, get a book like mine and not mine, someone else's, but stop the negative talk. That is really all the negativity's just got to go out the door. And that is really one of the things that I would say exactly where you need to start with that. Um, there's also a lot of other things that we think are ours that are not. There's another book that I love. It's called Shake the Family Tree. It Didn't Start With You by Mark Wolin. And we talk there about generational trauma and the things that that were sometimes foisted upon us, that they're not ours. They were, we were taught. And then if we try to move away from the familial tribe and and embark on our own path, we can be pulled back, we can be shamed, we can deal with others' anger. So you're going to have to understand also that when you're dealing with your own self-esteem, you are going to have to be rather courageous with it, because some moments are going to be, just get ready for that, it's going to be uncomfortable. So be really, really worried about, be mindful about that, I think also. Um, yeah, I think that that is really, really important. The other thing is, a lot of people, when they start working on their self-esteem, are afraid of failure. I think we're always afraid of failure, right? But remembering that your failure is really your first attempt in learning, right? And remembering that we're not always going to get it right the first time, that we may have to come back again. You might have to read chapter 1 3 or 4 times. You might have to, so just keep at it, be really persistent, and mindful about where it is you want to go. Fear is one of the things that has always kept me held back. And so fear is one of those kind of things that you need to plow through. You absolutely do. Getting those resources and the tools in the shed in the back are really important, because again, as I said, self-esteem doesn't discriminate. It ebbs and flows. People say, do you ever take a test on self-esteem and you get 100 and you're good? No, you don't, because life is life and it will trigger you. And you won't see it coming. But what the really good thing about doing the work in personal development and self-esteem, self-awareness, self-confidence, is that you accrue more tools that you can use when here comes the hurricane, here comes the tornado, you stand strong in your stead, much like a well-rooted tree. And you're not, you might lose a leaf or two or potentially a branch, but you're not going to be uprooted with the storm and transported away. So these are the really, really important things I also think are important to, think about when you're start embarking on your self-esteem journey. Remembering that change is the only constant in life. And so again, things are going to come up. It's just the way it is. And it is our perception of self, right? It's, and if we have a bad, because again, what were you taught? What were you told? What are you comparing yourself to? And what information are you taking in on any given day? Just know that there is a way out of all the negativity. And that's, I think, again, getting back to wanting to learn. I also like to talk about getting a very strong value system, Guido. And when I talk about, I say to somebody, give me your top 4, values, important values in your life. A lot of people don't know how to answer that right off the bat. Mine is something that I call taking the high road. And that is honesty, integrity, gratitude, and honor. And I will promise you that apart from the fact that I want to be a better person tomorrow than I am today, and that is my daily goal with whatever that may mean for the day. But coming back to the value system, when I come to the table, that you're going to get honesty, you're going to get integrity, you're going to get gratitude, and you're going to get honor all day long, every day. It's a hill I'm going to die on. It doesn't always make me the most popular person in the room. Right? Because, when you're radically honest with yourself and others, some things people don't want to hear. And I get it. So a lot of the times I try to soften my tone or, whatever, but you're going to get that. And I think can you imagine, I ask this question frequently. Can you imagine if when you woke up tomorrow, everybody in the world was honest? What kind of world we'd live in? Just imagine it for a moment. It'll never happen, but could you imagine what that would mean? Honor is really standing on principle. When you honor yourself and, who are you when no one else is in the room? And who are you when you don't get your way?
The faces of the stranger. Look, you've put a lot of things. If I'm a contractor, you put a lot of things in my toolbox. If I'm a cook, you've just put a lot of things in, if I'm a chef, you put a lot of things into my mixing bowl. If I'm a writer, you've put a lot of things into my boards here, my storyboards.
Right.
As you gave us all this stuff, and you're very good. You gave us some foreshadowing earlier when we started talking. The title of your book, The Self-Esteem Regime, suggests that there is an order to self-esteem. Is there? And could you share with us a bit about what that might be and how do we put this stuff together, Clarissa?
Well, I'm going to start with, again, first, the first chapter, as I had told you before, is release. The second is rebuild. And that's another really huge chapter because, you're kind of raw. When the first couple of chapters are going to be like, wow, there's a lot of work to be done. Okay, let's do this. Right. The third chapter, I'm going to go in order that I don't have memorized. The next one is responsibility. Where do we take responsibility? Where are we shirking responsibility? Where are we kind of weak? Where do we procrastinate? Where do we just not, we just want to close one eye, that sort of thing. Open both eyes and affront everything. And that's why I call it a regime as well, because, we're not kidding around here. Like, you're going to do the work. The next one is like replace, reaffirm, reinvent, reinforce, repeat, rebound, redirect. And then we've got, at the end, I've got respect and reciprocal. Reciprocal was, this is the law of reciprocity. It was difficult for me to accept anything really. I mean, I felt as though I was I was giving and caring and loving and that sort of thing. And I think one day I said something and somebody said, but don't you understand, Clarissa, it's so hard to give to you. It's so hard to do anything for you. And that was a teaching moment for me,
Mm.
because I realized that maybe people were trying to do, but I was so, independent and so self-sufficient that I wasn't opening myself up to anyone else that wanted to be reciprocal in the
Right.
relationship, right? So that's really, really, I think, important too. And if I don't know how much time we have or
So
how.
we're good. We're good. So what I'm thinking, Clarissa, is then what you're saying to in terms of the structure, the book provides us the structure so that when we
Yes.
put all those things in the bowl or the toolbox,
Yep.
it helps us guide through those steps that we're going to take.
You absolutely are.
Um,
You talked mirror therapy before, and the mirror therapy
right.
was something that I had learned from Louise Hayes and
Right.
her works. Jack Canfield used it in his works as well. Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup for the Soul, along with Mark Victor Hansen. And I figured if it was good enough for them, it was good enough for me, because these are titans of the personal development industry. And I think that when you start, there are two ways to approach a mirror. One is to look into the mirror, one is to look at the mirror, and one's to look into the mirror. Looking at the mirror is when you're preening, right? You're doing all your, brushing your hair and whatever else you're doing. And the next thing is to look into the mirror. And that's when you really sit and you look and you talk to yourself. You become your own rah-rah session, and you say things to yourself that others may not have said, and you debunk some myths if you need to, for some of the things that people said that you just don't agree with. And it can be it's a really impactful exercise, and it's hard for some people. Some people can only do it for 20 seconds first time out. Work your way up to 4 or 5 minutes if you can. But it's a pretty cool exercise. It looks weird. It feels weird. It sounds weird. You might want to shut the door, maybe nobody else is home when you're doing it. But I guarantee you, within 21 days, your life is going to start turning around when you start affirming beautiful, happy,
Yeah.
healthy things for yourself.
Yeah, and so you referenced, just for the listeners, you referenced Louise Hay. She was an
Yes,
American motivational speaker and author. She was an
yes,
advocate of love,
yes.
and she employed the mirror work as part of being able to learn to
She
love
did.
yourself.
She started
Um,
her own publishing company, which is one
right.
of the most important publishing companies around personal development and self-improvement.
So you also earlier mentioned, the cover of your book, and you talked about gender. Do you have any insights when it comes to self-esteem from a gender perspective? Do men or women tend to have more or less? Is it situational? Could Obviously, I'm going to say, could this book help them if you did it
Yeah.
with consciously saying, "Oh, I want to change it so men will pick it up."
Yes.
And then as you're talking about the mirror therapy, can you bind those things together for us from a gender
Yeah.
perspective?
I'm going to go with, first of all, I do believe it's situational. I don't think there's a gender thing. It's easier for women to talk to one another, and it's easier for women to talk to themselves. I think guys don't really, they're told from a very early age, what manhood is all about and how they should be comporting themselves. And I think that, I think it's a shame. I think guys need to open up a little bit more. And if they don't feel comfortable doing that, there are some men that have, they find it easier to talk to women. Great. Find somebody you can talk to. Doesn't matter who it is. If that's what you need to do, if you need to open up, I definitely think that's it. If you really want to, both men and women can do the mirror and should do the mirror therapy work. It's going to look weird, guys. It's going to feel really weird. You're going to feel really silly doing it. But when you start to get comfortable with it, it's like, hey, Clarissa, how's everything? You looking really good today. I just wanted to say you look real good, congratulations on whatever you did. I really want to give you kudos for that presentation you did the other day in front of like 300 people, like whatever it is. I think you prepared really well. You knocked it out of the ballpark, and you got some great feedback. So that's really good. I want to also let you know that I love you. I love you so much. I just love you. I love the person you're becoming. I love the work that you're doing to become a better person tomorrow than you are today. And whatever that means to you, right? Whatever you want to hear. I also want to let you know that I forgive you for that time that, and then fill in the blanks, right? So, it's really kind of, we do hold it, we carry burden with us.
Mm.
We carry anger, we carry guilt, we carry shame. And these are the kinds of things that you will start to work on in chapter 1. You start bringing all that stuff up. What do you do with it? You just go, you know what? Next, move on. Here's my line in the sand. Here's where I forgive myself. I know I'll never do that again because I've learned the lesson. And I'll tell you this, you will continually get the same lesson sent to you by, I'm going to say universe, you can put
Mhm.
in, whatever word. You will get that same lesson over and over until you learn it,
So just
until you learn the
s-
lesson.
so we're clear as you're telling us this, there's no there's no end, right? Like there's no I've now reached my perfect self-esteem moment and I will be in this forever. I think it's sort of a constant journey as things happen around us. Is that what I'm also hearing?
Think that it's better to say we are constant constantly in evolution. We are a work in progress. I've spoken to people older than me also about self-esteem and where they are. You have to understand that people that are getting older are not feeling as productive, they're not feeling as needed, they're empty nesters, their friends are
Mhm.
starting to pass on, they're starting to feel lonelier, they don't feel as though they have a place in society. Many do. And so again, that's why I had asked you before the show who your audience is, because if I'm talking to a group of 14, 15, 16-year-old girls, then I kind of know, I put myself in the mindset and into, where what they might be living and going through in their lives right now. So I think that, it's really, as you said, it's situational more than generational, right? Doesn't matter. Gender. I meant not
Yeah,
generational, gender.
gender.
Um, but I think, yeah, absolutely. Are we all going to be burdened every day and self-esteem? No, but I do want it to be, one of those kind of things that you're mindful of, that you continually work on. You owe it to yourself to do that, as I said before, and to others. There are lots of great books out there that are just really good to read. I mean, just wanting to be a really good person, not forgetting, what it means to be kind, right? What it means to do something good for someone else. I mean, sometimes, when I talk about the 4 pillars of self-esteem, look good, feel good, be good, and greater good. The greater good piece is it's really helping others. And that doesn't necessarily mean always in a monetary sense. It can be just a kind word or a compliment or holding an elevator door open for someone as you see is struggling to get get to it, or helping a woman down the stairs with a baby carriage, standing up on public transportation for either a pregnant woman or the elderly, like doing the right thing. And our younger generations don't do this as much anymore. I think that those kinds of, we used to call them manners, good manners. I think that it's just kindness. It's coming from your heart, living, really beating from the heart, I think is important too.
So
And then,
Clarissa, you got to this point in your life where you could talk about the pillars and you could talk about the value systems and some folks might look at you and say, well, yeah, but you were a model and you were an actor and you did, these news things and
I've got the
but
answer.
how
Keep going.
how how much, did self-esteem play into your daily life or how you approach your next opportunity? I mean, I imagine it wasn't always a flat line. You must have had some hills and valleys
Oh
that you
yeah.
could share.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me just say with that, again, nothing that I do here is to bash parents. Again, that's not what I'm about. It's not what I do. But, my childhood grew up in a difficult home. There was violence and there was alcohol and there was, it was a very severe Catholic upbringing, and it was your children are to be seen and not heard. And anything that you were doing that was either creative or fun, there was a very short leash on you at all times. And so the idea of a compliment, there was no compliment. There was very little in the way of you really did good, or I don't think I ever heard I'm so proud of you, ever. I certainly never heard you're beautiful. Right. So when I got out to say, well, I'd love to be a model, but I don't think I ever could, there was no, I think there wasn't very much in the way of background or foundation, the foundational principles, if you will, of, who I needed to be in society. And so I think that the idea was that, there was a worry that I would become conceited because, because of all the gifts, as rightfully so, you've pointed out that had been given. But I really had to, I know that there was, PTSD that I had to work through, no doubt. There was anxiety that I lived through that had me gripped for the first 30 some years of my life. Depression abound. So I come from a place where, again, for me, experiential. And I think there's no way I could have written a book about self-esteem had I not come, and I really want to thank, my parents, if you will, because I'm able now through my experience to help so many others through the book. This book really is changing lives one chapter at a time.
Yeah, no, and thank you, because you mentioned earlier we talked about the grass being greener and how we perceive things, and as you weave that into what you just told us, it's important, and you said, "Hey, I needed these experiences also help form my
Absolutely.
ability to do this." Now, I couldn't have done this, 20 or 30 years ago because I
No.
was still going through the things I was doing and
Yeah,
learning from them, which now puts me in the place where I can speak to them and speak to them, through experience. Look,
absolutely.
at the beginning of this interview, I introduced you as Dame Clarissa Burt. And for
Yes.
those that may not know, a dame is when a woman is recognized by the monarch to receive high honors in recognition of a service or accomplishment in their
Mhm.
field. In June of 2022, you were knighted by the Royal Order of Constantine the Great and St. Helen, joining 350 dames worldwide. And I want to say congratulations on that.
Thank you.
How does an event or recognition of this magnitude influence self-esteem? And should we look for these moments on different levels for ourselves?
Well, undoubtedly, it was a lovely honor to be nominated and to have the nomination accepted, to have the prince fly in from Spain.
Yeah.
And he knighted about 20 different people that night, 10 women and 10 men, up in Vegas a year and a half ago. And it just becomes, it's a community of people that are doing good around the world. And so, it was just about a title, I'm fine. I'm just fine, just without a title. The idea that there's so much good being done by this royal order around the world is really exciting. Funnily enough, I will be in Chicago this coming weekend, next weekend, for another royal knighting. I have nominated a lovely woman that will be knighted as well, and so the royal order here in the United States just keeps growing and growing. And again, so many really good
Wonderful.
people. Again, people that beat from the heart, that are out there doing great things in the world, and so it's their recognition.
That's wonderful, Clarissa. Look, can you also share with us how the self-esteem regime has influenced your work as the founder and CEO of In the Limelight Media that includes TV, video, podcasting, and a digital magazine?
Yes, and mastermind as well. It's where I really bring together a group of extraordinary entrepreneurs that, in the limelight is all about, shining a light on them. And so either through, the video piece, the podcast piece, or in the digital magazine, which, wait a minute, I just dropped. Let me give you, just dropped it a week ago. Here you go. Here's the summer
Oh,
edition. So
wow.
you can,
Wonderful.
yeah, In the Limelight with Clarissa. There you go.
Hey.
Summer 2024. Yeah, you can find that on my website. But it's a digital magazine, so you can find it on the website. But what I do is just help entrepreneurs get the word out. I work on PR. We get out press releases and also news releases for them, and get them in front of, doing exactly what you and I are doing right now, getting the word out, getting the brand out, getting their messaging out. So yeah, that I love it. I love helping other people do what I love to do. So
It's wonderful. And Clarissa, just so I understand, is the podcast also called In the Limelight?
In the Limelight, one is called In
Excellent.
the Limelight is the brand. There is
Yeah.
also a podcast called In the Limelight with Clarissa. And then I've just started a new show
Wonderful.
called Shelf Mates, the Titans of the personal development industry. Those are the people that are in the personal development section in Barnes and Noble, the authors.
That is wonderful. We're going to make sure that we've got those in the show notes for folks so that we can make those connections for you. Look, I kicked off season 5 of my show this past January with a segment on yoga. And you're thinking, where is he going with this? It was a fantastic self-help segment, and one of the ways that we end each yoga practice, because I do yoga, is by saying the word namaste as we
Yes.
give thanks to each other, ourselves, and a big part of the practice is giving love to our own body and to our own mind, thanking
Yeah.
ourselves for letting our body and our mind complete and achieve that practice. So it's a state of thankfulness, and you talk about living in a constant state of gratitude.
Mhm.
Who do you have gratitude for?
Who or what?
Either.
Who I have gratitude for, all the people that really potentially either hurt me, let me down, betrayed me, or whatever else, because
Hmm.
without them, I don't think I'd be as strong as I am today. What am I grateful for? Pretty much everything else. I'm grateful for the food in my pantry, a warm bed at night, and soft bed at night. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my friends. I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my health care. I just had an operation 5 months ago, and I had wonderful health care to get to see me through that. I'm grateful for the glasses that I'm wearing right now, because without them, I wouldn't be able to see. I'm grateful for you and the time that you've given me so that I can, talk about a book that I'm, obviously is my baby, but I know that is really greatly helping other people, which is exciting to me. Do I need to go on, or are we good?
I just think it's
Well, right now, I'm
wonderful.
also
I
grateful for air conditioning in Phoenix, Arizona, because it's 103 degrees.
No, but that's great. And so you mentioned some very simple things as well, and sometimes we take those simple things for
Yes.
granted.
Yes.
I want to thank you for being here with us today and for entertaining all of my questions,
Thank you.
and for your patience as I ask them. Before we do let you go, can you tell us where the best place to grab a copy of your book and how to best engage with you online?
Absolutely. Here in the United States, so it's been 2.5 years in the Barnes and Noble stores, but certainly you can find it on Amazon. I know that you have it on Amazon there in Canada, Amazon, Kindle, and Audible all over the world.
Thank you. That is Dame Clarissa Burt, touched by royalty, but among us, sharing in the self-esteem journey that is better approached as a regime. You see, it is truly the never-ending story of us, each of us, as we define our boundaries, grow within our value systems and moral codes, build trust and understanding our emotional intelligence. Clarissa invites you to learn more about you and your self-esteem through her book, The Self-Esteem Regime. I will have all of her contact information in the show notes. Thank you again, Clarissa. We wish you the best and hope to catch up with you again in the future. And please take care.
Thanks, Guido.